Well, let's bring in Zaki Mamdoo, Stop EACOP Coalition Coordinator, to weigh in on the latest energy investment from China, of course, coming out from the BRICS Summit currently underway in Sandton. Zaki, good afternoon. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon to you and your viewers, and thank you for having me on the show.
Let's get your sentiments. We're obviously shining a spotlight on the latest news emerging, China's investment in the energy crisis faced by South Africa. How are they at this point uniquely positioned to assist?
Look, our main challenge with this comes in the fact that far too often this is just rhetoric, especially on the part of the Chinese. And it's what we aim to shed light on today. We gathered hundreds of climate justice activists and community-based organizations at the Ines Free Park in Sandton to protest a number of things. But, you know, one of the big ones is around China's ongoing involvement in incredibly detrimental and damaging fossil fuel projects across the African continent. A big one, and one of major concern to us, is the East African crude oil pipeline project, which is an incredibly damaging project, which is surrounded in controversy from extreme environmental risks and damages that we're already seeing even before the project itself has been fully constructed, but also numerous human rights violations and the loss of land, the loss of livelihood. And so, look, while Total Energies is one of the principal shareholders in the East African crude oil pipeline itself, it's important to point out that the state-owned Chinese National Offshore Oil Corporation, CNOOC, is also a major shareholder and also owns and operates the Kingfisher oil drilling site. They would seek to extract thousands of barrels of oil a day from the lake bed of Lake Albert, which is incredibly important for its source, and pump that oil into the East African crude oil pipeline for export at the ports of Tanga in Tanzania, where it would go to serve the energy needs of countries abroad. There's that, but Chinese companies are also involved in the manufacturing of the pipes itself that would be used to build the pipeline. Another Chinese company called Sinosure is also emerging and has been reported to be, one of the main insurance companies that would potentially back the project itself. And then you have the Industrial Commercial Bank of China, which is involved in numerous harmful projects, including EACOP. But if I can just say that, in this way, we are seeing that it's not just EACOP, it's also the Cabo Delgado gas projects in Mozambique, it is the coal-related projects in Zimbabwe, it is the mining in Madagascar, it is here in our own backyard is the Musina Makaro Special Economic Zone, where China is involved in these developments, which really are damaging and harmful for communities, and which will do very little to spur meaningful development and growth. And in actual fact, they are replicating the colonial, extractive, and destructive model that we've seen, imposed to Africa for the last 400 years. And so what we are saying, and what we were saying today in our protest at Ines Free Park, is that we need a new model, one that is rooted in the principles of justice, of equity, of transparency, of sustainable solutions to our crisis and of collective benefit. We can no longer accept the profiteering models of the past and of the current, which create so much harm and simply do not do enough in terms of meaningful growth and development.
Zaki, thank you for those sentiments. I want to make sure that I didn't lose you on any of those points, because we're obviously anticipating or looking into whether we're foreseeing any pitfalls on the back of the signing of this MOU. Tanstaffel, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. We also understand that, so we're not even privy to the terms and conditions at this point. Given the challenges, though, faced the world over in relation to climate change, the just energy transition, and South Africa's unique context, both economically, historically, and culturally, at this point, what are your thoughts on the lessons that we could also learn from China, whether it's learning what to do, what not to do, in terms of managing their own energy? How, at this point, given the signing of the MOU, there are ways to improve South Africa's socio-economic conditions on the long run as well? I know it's a catch-22 situation, given the sentiments you'd echoed. Help us balance that.
Well, look, I can't speak to the MOU itself because, like you correctly point out, we do not fully, we've not been privy to it. We do not understand the terms and conditions that are set out therein. But what we can say is that it is an agreement that has been made without any real input from those who are on the front lines of the climate crisis, or from those, at least in our own context, and across the African continent, who are suffering from having no access to electricity. And so this is something that we have to look. We can see the terms of the MOU. Hopefully, it will be made public. It should be, and we can assess it from there. But the approach already is problematic because it does not come from below. It does not involve the citizenry of South Africa, or people who live in South Africa in this case. But all of these agreements that have been struck across the continent do not involve us, and we are legitimate stakeholders because, it is our futures, our prospects for meaningful and prosperous economic growth, and for lives that are decent, for work that is decent, etc., that are at stake. And so in that, we need to play an active role and be invited to come to the table. We need BRICS from below, as it were, as opposed to this top-down approach where you have these really many countries who are incredibly autocratic, incredibly repressive, and involved in numerous projects which, projects which are harmful and which creates a lot of damage and to people's lives. We need to transcend that, and we need the people. We need a people's BRICS where these decisions can be made in the best interest of the people themselves. And so, coming to your next point around lessons that we can draw from China, I mean, you see, what we have a lot of is, rapid upscaling of renewable energy infrastructure in mainland China. But at the same time, they are, and under the guise of saying they are transitioning, whatever it may be, they are in fact moving their harmful fossil fuel projects onto the African continent and elsewhere around the world. And that is what we are seeing with projects like the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, with projects like the Cabo Delgado gas projects, et cetera, where they are essentially engaging in a second scramble for Africa, as it were, in order to get a slice of the pie that is Africa, so that they can service their own energy needs. And really and truthfully, communities on the front lines are left to shoulder the entirety of the social or environmental costs of these projects. Because with fossil fuels, there are always costs. There's always a trade-off. There is no way you can have a fossil fuel project, no matter how many jobs it may promise. One, those jobs are hardly ever good jobs, nor are they lasting jobs. They are menial jobs, and they force people into one-day wage slavery, as it were. But all of those promises come with costs, and African communities across the continent, including very much so here in South Africa, are made to live with those costs for generations to come. And so we are saying we really need a new model and new approach. The lessons must be brought out of our movement, and not so much out of sub-imperialist countries who would seek to impose the same kind of. Yes, sorry.
No, absolutely. Some pertinent questions there and some pertinent points made. Thank you for your time with us on the SABC and for weighing in. Zaki Mamdoo, Stop EACOP Coalition Coordinator, weighing on the latest energy intervention from China, of course, coming out from the BRICS Summit that's currently underway in Sandton. Again, thanks to him for his time with us here on the SABC.